It's a bit difficult with so little playing time on the field having passed. There was no 2020 season for these guys to play. The pandemic has otherwise made things somewhat difficult for players to develop the same way that they otherwise could be expected to. But using the very little data we have now, I'll make do in this. Now, one thing I need to note is that the 2020 draft had just 5 rounds. So the Mariners had an extra pick, so they got 6 players in that draft. They took Emerson Hancock in round 1. I'm not sure the Mariners would change their pick at this point, despite Hancock needing to be shut down this past summer with a shoulder thing. The picks right after Hancock were Nick Gonzalez, who will not stick at shortstop long-term, but had a very good year in high A, still 2+ years from sticking in the majors. Then it was a pair of high school outfielders in Robert Hassel to the Padres and Zach Veen to the Rockies. I wrote the week of that draft that Reed Detmers would be a better pick for the Mariners than Gonzalez, and Detmers screaming through the minors, I think, is strong evidence that indeed was the case, even though he's more of a 3 long-term. There is no other apparent pick after Hancock that makes you go, yeah, in hindsight. You know, and maybe that changes, but we've had just 1 season pass since the draft. Oddly, the first pick of round 2 would be on my list ahead of a lot of first-rounders. Ohio State catcher Dylan Dingler went to the Tigers with that pick. I wouldn't swap Dingler with Hancock, but he'd be in that mix with Detmers and North Carolina State catcher Patrick Bailey, who went to the Giants. And not that I wouldn't consider Gonzalez, but he just, at the end of the day, would be 4th or 5th on my list. He's a second baseman. I think he's more of a Paul Molitor power-wise. You know, where he hits 14 to 18 homers and hits 290, 350. But I don't see a plus defender. I don't see a dynamic athlete. I don't see the mass upside. I'll stick with Hancock. If the draft were redone today, Hancock probably falls out of the top 10 because clubs would be worried about the shoulder. And there's, certainly a shot that he would fall entirely out of the first round because that's how drafts work a lot of times. But unless and until we find out it's something serious, I'm still on him pretty hard. I'm a big Emerson Hancock guy. In the second round, Seattle took Zach DeLoach, who's developing well, smoothly, on time, but came to pro ball without big upside. So the fact he's on that smooth track is important to kind of justify taking him there. At the time, I was wanting upside there. A guy like Mason Wynn, the two-way kid who went to the Cardinals about 10, 15 picks later in the round, was one of my favorites. 43 might have been a little bit high for him. And might still, again, in a redraft, even though the hit tool has shown pretty well. Honestly, I think the Mariners' second round pick, Connor Phillips, might warrant consideration at 43. Hey, it's Jason Churchill. To get the full episode, as well as every other episode of the podcast, past and future, subscribe for as little as $5 per month by going to bit.ly/getthepod. That's bit.ly/getthepod, all one word. A link you can also find on my Twitter profile. Hey, thanks for checking out Baseball Things.